Welcome to the Capitalist Corner, everybody. We are waiting for the boomerific Mark Pellegrino to join us. I've sent him the link twice, but he can't seem to figure it out. So, in the meantime, I'll just tell you that I am also the host of the Rational Egoist podcast. We've got a great episode out right now with the great Jim Valliant. It's all about humor and the role it plays in the good life. Make sure you check that out, and also make sure that you go and you check out AmericanCapitalistParty.org. We have a great party. We're all about individual rights, and we're going to help move this country in the right direction. I don't know what is happening with Mark. We're going to continue to check on him periodically. Let me see if I can email him, and maybe it'll work that way. Let's give it a shot. Let's see. There it goes. It's sent. Okay, Mark, I've also emailed it to you. So we have this he says that what I sent came through his phone, not his computer. I text it to him every day, folks. So I would expect that it would go through his phone. I don't know why. Let me tell him I just emailed it to him. But I do have some thoughts on this ceasefire that I can multitask here. The problem that I have with a lot of what's going on is there is a lot of confirmation bias taking place right now. And there's a lot of people claiming success. For instance, oh, look, we've done our job in Iran. We can now move on. There's been no problem with it. It's been not even a day since they called the ceasefire, and that even appears to be falling apart. But people are so quick to jump up and claim success. I remember W did it with the mission accomplished banner, but it's not just the hawks who are claiming it. The peaceniks are also claiming, oh, look how nice Iran is. They didn't even retaliate in full force. That just goes to show that it was a mistake. And everybody just has whatever opinion they had, and it's immediately confirmed. That's just not the way to approach evidence. Now Mark can't open the link. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm going to email it to him once again, and hopefully that will work. But what do you guys think about that? This idea that whatever happens just enforces the way that you already think, or the way people already think, that's not a good thing in my view. Not a good thing at all. I mean, and it's a known bias, cognitive bias, but people still do it and they engage in it. So Kathy Cassio says, I'm just holding my breath because I don't think anything is over. I doubt it is, but I don't know. And that's the whole point, is that it's too soon for us to know anything. And it's as if people have got this idea now that because of the speed with which we can put our opinions out there, that reality must match that speed. So because I can come on here and say, this is what's going on, this is what happened, and I can do it all, with lightning speed. I mean, I can, Mark obviously can't, but they believe that that's how fast you actually know things, but you simply can't. We have no clue what's going on. We have no clue what's going to unfold or what's going to come from this. Let's see. Did he get it? I'm going to tell him, try again. New link. Lee, you said you want to join. How do I get you on? I'll put you on here, Lee. You could come on and share your views with the world. I'd be okay with that. I'm sure you could figure out how to open the link. So Greg Lewis says the fact that Israel is still acting suggests that they have something they still consider in their best interest. Sure. Yeah, I agree. I mean, and we don't know what their intelligence is telling them. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. There's so much that we just don't know. Yes, Lee, you can, but I don't know how to send you a link. You got to tell me how to send you a link. Message me on X and tell me how to send you a link, and I'll do it. Shay says he's starting a petition for her, but no, I know, Lee. I can send you the link, but I don't know where to send it. That's the inherent problem. Where do I put it? Where do I send it to? Oh, here comes Mark. Here comes Mark. We're gonna get him on. He looks pissed. I'm gonna add him to the stage. Mark, you look pissed, and you can't hear. Oh man, what's he doing now? Yes, we're taking cheap shots at Mark because he's not here, but we will take cheap shots at him when he is here.
Shut the fuck up. Sorry, I know you could hear that.
Everybody can hear it.
Yeah, my computer's doing things that are making me mad. All right, hold on. Let me get my shit together here because I'm having to do this on my frickin' phone, which I have to balance in a weird way because I can't hook my microphone up to it any other way. And I think if I do it sideways, the picture's going to be all funky. But every time I set it up, the computer makes weird noises.
Welcome to the Capitalist Corner, folks, where whatever can go wrong will go wrong. Mark, Lee wants to come on with us. I'm going to send her a link because I told her I would. Do you mind?
No, bring her on.
All right, Lee, I just have to figure out what's going on here. You said you DM'd. Let me get the invite.
Is my picture strange here because I'm on my phone and
you look fan-freaking-tastic,
it's precariously balanced.
No. You look absolutely wonderful. There is no one better than Mark Pellegrino when it comes to, I don't know, something.
Yeah, okay, that's the way to put it. That's my preference. So you might have to scroll through the articles, and I think we should take Dave first as usual because why not? Because
okay, well,
he's the low-hanging fruit.
I will do it, but what I'm actually okay. I'm gonna get Lee coming here. I got to accept link thing. So what I was just talking about, Mark, is how this thing is not yet 2 weeks old since Israel first struck Iran, and everybody is confirmed in what they already believe. So the Dave Smiths of the world are saying, look, Iran is so nice. They didn't attack us. You know, they're showing restraint. The Trumpsters are saying, oh, look at him. He's the great deal maker. Look what a great job he's doing. We have no idea how this thing is going to play out. Right.
Well, so, I don't think Dave Smith would disagree with you in the overall assessment there, to be honest with you.
Well, maybe not.
That's his fear. I mean, his fear, I think he projects that Iran is much more powerful than they're playing off. And he thinks that their restraint, demonstrates it's something, a better faith, I think, than I could imagine Iran ever displaying. But I think he thinks they're more powerful, and that any deeper involvement with the United States is certainly going to turn into a quagmire because they have stuff that they're hiding from the United States and from Israel.
We're gonna bring Lee on. All right, add to stage. Boom.
Hello.
Lee, you're here with us. This is how we do it. We play it fast and loose. I came here. I didn't even wear a full shirt. Mark's got the hat backwards. We're rocking and rolling.
I always have the hat backwards, though.
No, you do. I know.
Move.
You remind me of John Kramer in Saw 7, trying to be down with the kids.
Oh, my goodness. He's a boomer. He's the boomer that wants to fit in with the kids.
Wow. Wait, what was the cultural reference though? Because I missed the cultural reference.
Yeah, of course you did, because you're a boomer.
Yeah. So, but I'm not trying to be down with the kids. Let me tell you why I wear this hat. Because I wake up in the morning and I don't do anything with my hair. Now, Michael has pointed out that when I just come on without a hat, my hair is perfect for some reason.
It is.
It's like perfectly messy. But no, that's not always the case. So I put my hat on. This is the way I go to jiu-jitsu, by the way. So I'm preparing for jiu-jitsu, which is going to be, in the next hour and a half.
All right. So let me give you a quick take on this whole thing coming from multiple directions.
The Dave Smith thing.
Dave Smith, but even broader, right? The Dave logic that well, look, Iran isn't responding because they're showing restraint. Well, the problem is Israel is in control of their airspace. They've been getting hit for weeks now, so it would make sense that they couldn't respond. Furthermore, the whole idea is to make it so they can't respond. That's why you hit them, is so they don't have the capability to hit you. But ironically, Dave assumes that they're stronger than they are, which actually makes a stronger case for hitting them, because the stronger that they get, the more you want to take them out before they get any stronger. But the Trump people, I mean, it's like they're just, oh, look, everybody said it was going to be a quagmire, but it's not a quagmire. Oh, my freaking God, people. The ceasefire is not a day old, and they're already breaking it. Like, give me a freaking break.
The ceasefire wasn't 30 minutes old before the Iranians were breaking it. And then Trump had to restrain the Israelis in their retaliation because they were going to hit multiple targets, and they decided to only hit one radar station because of Trump. I mean, look, it's an ego fest. What we have now are a bunch of narcissists, proving who's the top dog on the hill, basically.
Lee, your beverage container is really disturbing the entire ambiance that we.
Yeah, you have to know that it's very loud, so just be careful.
Sorry.
No, yes, right. I mean, we're going to start getting complaints in the chat. And we're going to get a lot of problems. Chandler's already claiming affirmative action. He wants to come on because he's 1% black, something. I don't know what's happening. But yeah, Mark.
What are you even saying by that, my friend?
See, this is the problem. I'm multitasking. I'm paying attention to you. I'm paying attention to Lee. I'm paying attention to the stories, and I'm paying attention to the chat. So Chandler is upset because he wasn't brought on. He's saying, oh, you're bringing the chat on now. Why aren't I allowed on? Deeper with the Ego tells him, well, they don't allow blacks on the show. And now Chandler is saying, well, I'm only 1% black. So there's a lot going on right now. We've got a lot going on.
Wow. I think, though, this could be a regular feature of the show. I think
we can do this occasionally.
Maybe on Thursdays, we bring on somebody from the chat.
It's Tuesday.
Oh, whatever. It's Tuesday. Hey, man, come on. I'm jet lagged. I was in New York like 2 days ago.
Oh my God!
My entire biological clock is thrown off. I can't take that kind
OBS.
of. I can't take that kind of travel without serious repercussions.
Are you
to
serious?
My
Listen, let me just tell you. If the plane ride he's on, if the hotel is any indicator, they gave him the whole floor. Like, you go in the whole floor, and this is a huge hotel, and they gave him everything. Like, people were coming up and offering him drinks. Oh, sir, would you like this? These poor people. I mean, I'm guessing that
we're getting way off topic here, but I gotta say, look, the whole ride up, I do ride in first class, but who has my seat? Frankie. I give Frankie my seat. I sit on the very edge of the seat while Frankie has the whole thing. Right? That's just the way I roll. All right. He's 12 pounds a dog. I have a California king. I sleep on 4 inches of a California king because my 12-pound dog takes up the entire bed. And he's allowed to do that because he's 126 years old in dog years. So he can do whatever the fuck he wants. Right, baby? Anyway.
Well, he's actually older than that. Because he's 156 plus 3.5. So he's 159.5. Actually,
all right. I'm not doing the math. I'm not in the cognitive space to do the math. But look,
okay. Get back to the story.
Dave Smith certainly likes to paint Israel in the most uncharitable possible light, and paint the enemies of Israel in the United States also as well in the most charitable possible light. There's no such thing as restraint with Iran. It's a pride-based culture. They're completely irrational. If they could throw everything they had at Israel, they would. And they attempted that once and failed miserably. They don't have the munitions, but the idea doesn't even occur to Dave. Just like when he says, Iran has been 1 year away from a nuclear weapon for the past 20 years. What does that mean? It means either it's not, this isn't true, or Netanyahu is lying. Those are the only two possibilities that Dave can think of. However, there's a third. The Mossad has been fucking with Iran's nuclear program for the entire time. They've infected their computers and centrifuges with viruses. They've actually assassinated nuclear scientists before. They have mysterious fires that break out in their reactor rooms. All of this stuff has been going on for decades because Israel has been keeping Iran from having a freaking weapon. That third option does not occur to Dave because he has to see Israel in the most uncharitable light. And I have to ask myself, why? Why is he so obsessed with seeing Israel in this way?
I don't know. There is a strain of the left, people on the left, there is a tendency to always view America and Israel as the bad guys. As if, now, I'm perfectly willing to grant it. Listen, we've had some bad people in our government, and it stands to reason Israel has as well. But how does that negate the evil in other governments? Why is it that they seem to think that these other countries can only act if America acts first, or if Israel acts first, that these other countries can't be bad? So that might be it. He might just be adopting the standard left libertarian worldview, the Ron Paul worldview. And I'm not saying Ron Paul's a left libertarian, nor am I saying they are, but in this instance.
So wait, so the left libertarian point of view is that is basically the American government was populated by neocons or Wilsonian type Democrats who wanted to impose democracy on the rest of the world. That's their point of view, which is not so far away from the colonialist imperialist point of view of the hard left.
Well, that's kind of my point. But they're not leftist in other regards, but they pick up the Noam Chomsky view of American foreign policy. But there's also the possibility that Lee, you got to pay attention.
Oh,
look alert. No, you're not. You're breaking cups and everything else. No, so listen, check it out. So Mark,
can I speak?
in a second, you just raise your hand. So
I'm trying to join on my iPad so I can not have to hold my phone up.
You're doing great. You're keeping everybody in. Okay, so there's also the possibility that Dave criticized Israel and realized that he could get a lot of followers that way. And that the more he talks about Israel and the more he condemns Israel, the more followers that he ends up with. That's a possibility.
Yeah, that is a possibility. He's certainly not getting famous from his comedy work. He's getting famous from his punditry and supposed expertise on the Middle East, which I think has been exposed multiple times by serious guys out there. And yet the guy continues to flourish. And I'm not exactly sure what it is about the guy, other than he's touching a primal chord in people. There is, I think, a strong anti-Semitic primal chord in lots of people, not only in the U.S., but certainly throughout Europe, and certainly throughout some of the conservative and left, conservative movement and the left. So. I can't figure out how a guy can become so popular. Go ahead,
Mark. If you tell people what they want to hear, you can get famous very, very quickly. If we picked some segment, whether it be the nativists, the Buchananites, or the neocons, whatever, you pick an area and you just come on and tell people what they want to hear every day. And they'll tune in. I mean, in Connecticut here, we have TIC Radio. It's a relatively conservative station, of which I was a guest, on that station for years and years. But most of the shows are hard right, and they tell the audience daily what they want to hear. There's one guy that's on in the morning who's kind of a centrist, and he doesn't do that. He just has a regular news show where he brings on Democrats, Republicans, and interviews them. And the callers to the other shows always talk about how much they dislike him. He's a leftist. They can't stand to have people tell them or say things to them that they don't believe or they don't think. It reminds me, years ago, I heard Tim McCarver, or it was either Tim McCarver or Joe Buck, but he said that when people watch them do their play-by-play of baseball games. They assume that they're biased against the listener's team. The reason being because the listeners, the watchers, are so used to their hometown announcers that just, are kissing their team's ass, basically, that when somebody calls it down the middle, they assume it's bias. People like to hear what they already believe. Okay, Lee, we're going to give you a shot. Go ahead.
What am I supposed to say?
Well, you said you wanted to say something. You were trying to get in. Now you're coming up and you don't know what to do?
I was just going to tell you I was swapping onto my iPad so I could stand it up easier.
Well, that's not like breaking news. I mean, you got to come with
because you said I was being loud, so I was just going to say what I was doing that was being loud.
Mark, from what I understand, she's a friend of yours. You brought her into our universe.
I did not.
You did.
Yeah, Lee's cool, but I didn't bring her into the universe.
She
volunteered. She volunteered. Who has control over this show right now?
This show is not the only universe.
Boomer number 2. Yeah, Boomer number 2, which is you. Hey, wait, I have a question here. This is from Ann M, and I want to see it since you know more about Hoppa than I do. She says Hoppa is making hating Israel a condition of being part of Mises. Is there any truth to this?
Well, I don't know if I'd put it exactly that way, but there is some truth to it. Walter Block, who is Mr. Libertarian. I mean, Walter Block is an anarchist going back, decades and decades. It's actually interesting. As a side note, Walter Block was a socialist, and he went to a function one time that had Ayn Rand and Nathaniel Branden there. And his intent was to go there and convince them that socialism was the way. So he approached, and Nathaniel Branden told him, hold on, I'll talk to you. And Nathaniel Branden went and sat down with him, and he told him, he said, listen, I'll have this discussion with you as long as you promise you'll stick it through till the end. And Walter said, okay. And Branden convinced him of the error of socialism and to be a capitalist. So that being said, he ends up being a Rothbardian anarchist. And when
not a capitalist.
Well, but I don't want to have that argument now. Let's just stick to the what we're talking about. So, what ends up happening is when Israel and Hamas are at war, Walter came out in favor of Israel, and they kicked him out of the Mises Institute for it. Hoppa actually wrote a paper disavowing Walter over the whole thing. I interviewed Walter on my show, The Rational Egoist, for anybody that's paying attention, about the entire subject of how they excommunicated him, basically. And he actually debated Dave Smith with Tom Woods moderating on the subject of Israel. It's a pretty good debate. I'd actually recommend it. So yes, there is some truth that to be a part of the Mises Institute, you have to be.
Why is it simply because they take American aid? Is this one of the things that, are they the conspiratorial thinkers who think Israel is the puppet master behind all of the problems going on in the Middle East?
Here's the problem.
I have to save my dog, so keep talking.
Lee left. Mark left. What the hell is happening?
No. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So I kind of forgot my train of thought with all the chaos going on, but let me try to get it back here. Yes, is the answer to your question, Mark. The problem is if you put it that way, you end up, they'll just deny it and say, no, that's not it. That's not the case. So yes is the answer to your question, but not explicitly. They wouldn't explicitly state that. Holden Mitrione says Block is so nice to him. Walter Block is one of the nicest people you will ever meet anywhere. Okay, Lee, you got to give us something. We have you on here. You have to give.
People in chat are talking to me. So can I have a second to answer them?
Yes, go ahead.
They're saying I should be on the show now and you should both get off.
Well, there's an easy way to accomplish that. I mean, Lee could just set up her own show and try to compete with us. I don't think she's going to do well.
I wouldn't be interested.
We are pretty good. Mark and I are really wonderful boomers. And if you're into the 19-year-old young lady scene, then I'd recommend we get Lee and get her a show.
I would not be good. I'm really awkward, so I don't really know how to talk. So I'm.
Oh no, you're doing wonderful.
I'm
Don't
sat
you
here
worry about it.
listening and trying to figure out where I'm supposed to speak. 'Cause I
All
don't
right.
know.
So
Well, don't
speaking
worry
of
about it.
speaking,
In cases like this, you just sort of have to take your space. That's the way it works. Catherine is saying this is all very distracting, so we should keep on track here. We got started a little awkward, folks. The SteamYard link didn't work for my computer. I had issues getting up on it. I had issues getting onto my phone on
all right.
it. So we
Okay.
started off in an uncharacteristically
We did.
a disorganized way, and we still sort of haven't found our way. So let's get to that story about Kelo, shall we?
Okay, that's exactly what I want to do. Lee, I'm going to send you back to the chat. I want you to say hi and bye to everybody. Wave. You don't be sad. You're still a part of the show, and we will be bringing people back. Mark's having trouble focusing. He can't do it. So we're going
What I do? I've literally just been sat here.
You're causing a lot of disturbances. You've got these creepy dolls in the background. I don't know what's going on there. Okay.
I don't know how to blur my
Lee,
background.
don't take anything Michael says too seriously. He's just busting your balls.
I am
Okay,
just
so-
busting your balls, Lee. Thank you so much for coming on, and we may make this a regular thing where we bring people from the chat onto the show. I think it adds a nice dynamic. Thank you, Lee.
I had fun. doing
Thank
absolutely
you.
nothing.
Thank you, Lee.
All right. So this Kelo decision has been pissing me off for almost 2 decades now.
I don't blame you.
Right. It happened in Connecticut, where I'm from, maybe 45 minutes from where I am. And it had to do with the government wanted to take somebody's home, somebody's property, and give it to a private developer. Now, the Constitution does allow for what's called eminent domain, where the government can take private property for public use as long as they justly compensate the victim. Let's call it for what it is. But in the case of Kelo, they actually took private property for private use because they said it was in the public's interest, or some such thing to have this. It's an overwhelming assault on private property. People are still fighting it. They're still trying to, get it out. But I'll never forget, I believe it was the South Carolina debate in the presidential primaries in 2016, and Donald Trump was just giddy over Kelo. He thinks that is a great decision. That's awesome. It's great, which tells me right at that point, if nothing else, I understand that Donald Trump is not a respecter of property rights. And so say whatever else you want, but property rights is the foundation of capitalism. Well, individual rights, but property rights is their proper implementation. And Donald Trump is not for them. Donald Trump is not a capitalist.
Absolutely, and there's a video by John Stossel that you should probably post to X for anybody who wants to see, that is all about this 20th anniversary of the Kelo decision. And here's what adds insult to injury to me, is that nothing has been built on that property to this day. So
yes,
to add
just did it.
Yeah, so to add insult to injury, folks, not only was this property stolen from this poor woman, and there's a movie with Catherine Keener about it called The Little Pink House. I have not seen. Yes, yes. There are scenes on it from in the Stossel video. If you watch the Stossel video, you'll see Catherine Keener. She plays she plays Kelo, and so to add insult to the injury, the theft occurs in the public interest, of course, as all terrible things happen in the public interest, and still to this day, nothing has been built on that property. So her home was taken from her, torn down. It's a vacant lot, and still is a vacant lot to this day. So I think she's got a case for enormous damages, remuneration in the future against the government that has taken this from her. So let's hope that she receives justice at some point or another.
And of course, right on cue, here comes Scott Schiff from the Ayn Rand fan club to defend Trump. I just wonder, Scott, is there anything that Trump could possibly do that would cause you to criticize him? He says Trump's looking at it from a real estate perspective. I don't give a damn what perspective he's looking at it from. You're talking about stealing from people. You're talking about using force to take people's homes so that others can have development. And yes, Trump may have been held up by corrupt governments, but he had no problem playing in those lanes, playing those games with those people. In that sense, he loved it. No,
He did, and he
Scott,
admitted to it.
he's not, Scott, I never said he's against all property. What I'm saying is that a person who thinks that it's okay for the government to take people's property and give it to others is not a capitalist. I remember when conservatives criticized Obama for saying spread the wealth around. That was redistributist. And it was horrible. Obama was a socialist, but Trump wants to take people's property. And oh no, it's understandable. Get out.
Yeah, and he's used it himself to take property, and he's a big supporter of it, and obviously openly so. So, yeah, property rights, folks, are the material way in which we implement our individual rights. Without property rights, there are no individual rights, folks, because we have to live and work and produce in the material world. And in order to do that, we need control over the materials that are in our realm, and that's what ownership is about, and that's what property rights are about. So because property is it's a finite thing, that has limited uses, and so we need control over those uses. Otherwise, we can't exercise our rights. So yeah, the Kelo case will hopefully will go on, and maybe the Supreme Court, as presently constituted, will come up with a better decision. I tend to think they might. What do you think?
I don't know, but I just don't know. And that's part of the problem when we talked the last couple of days about the Constitution. Is it's important, and Walter Williams is the one that convinced me of this years ago. He was sitting in for Rush Limbaugh. You have to know how the game is played ahead of time. And I don't mean game in a bad way. What I'm saying is you have to know what actions are allowable, what can happen. We simply don't know what the Supreme Court's going to decide anymore. It's complicated. It's not a principled thing. This should be easy, right? The Constitution does allow for the nefarious practice of taking private property for government use, for public use. It does not allow it for private use. Simple. That's it. It's over. But when you're looking to pragmatism rather than principle, you're screwed.
Do you think the Constitution should be amended so that there is no such thing as eminent domain, that
Yes.
the government has no capacity to take property for
Absolutely.
public use? I agree.
Absolutely.
So that has to be amended, and given the tenor of the times, and given the philosophy of the dominant philosophy of not only the political class but America, do you think that has the possibility of happening?
No.
No, nor do I. So we have a lot of work ahead of us to try to convince people that the government has no right to take your shit
Yeah.
in
Now
the
look
name
what
of the public
Sebastian
interest.
says. Do you see Sebastian Scalora, my landlord, and my
Oh, hold
good
on.
friend? He's my
Hold on.
landlord, but he's also a
Oh,
really good friend.
let me
Great guy.
let me look at the comments. Hold on.
So he says, people get pissed when someone takes your parking spot. I can't imagine someone or the government taking my house.
Right. Yeah. That, and they're supposed to offer you fair market value for it, but they determine what that fair market value is, and what they can't consider in the meantime is the subjective value of that piece of property to you, because people have sentimental attachments to their stuff that go far beyond monetary values, and it's quite possible that you could live in a home, let's say, that's valued at $500,000. But you don't want to lose that home. There's things about that. You've lived a life there. You have memories with that home that make it far more valuable to you, and you wouldn't be willing to take that fair market value, or even $200,000 above that fair market value for that place. It may be that your subjective value for that home is $1 million. All right, for $1 million, I'll part with my memories. And unfortunately, one of the many injustices of this unjust part of the Constitution is that it can never calculate those kinds of values. It can never calculate those kinds of values, and so it can never ever really, it can never result in justice ever. Let's hope we have a Supreme Court that's constituted with enough originalists or originalist-esque type justices to at least take this one more evil aspect out of the eminent domain in practice, which is to be able to take private property away from people for private interests. That's no good. That's no good. So, what else do we have going on here? You're going to have to take command of all the stories today.
Well, and I got to tell you, I have a newfound respect for you, Mark, because trying to navigate the phone and all the articles I send while I'm doing this is a pain. It's a pain in the balls. But anyways, I just want to say a few things. So Trump announced the ceasefire, and he was talking about it's going to hold, it's great, it's wonderful. You know how he talks.
Mhm.
Trump declares victory. And then a later story, Trump says both sides are violating the ceasefire. I don't mean to laugh because it's a serious topic, but dude, you don't declare victory. Oh, we won. It's great. It's going to last forever. And then an hour later, you're out there saying how it's not holding. And I guess he's pissed at Israel. Whatever. This goes back to what I was talking about at the beginning, is that sometimes you just have to wait and see. And I got an interesting debate on this subject the last couple of days with Gene Epstein from the Soho Forum. He's a non-interventionist, and so am I. But the conversation that I was having with him is that there's risks to both approaches. And I just went, and he said, well, one side is calling for death and destruction. I said, no, because that's not how they're looking at it. The person that wants to intervene because he or she believes it's going to cause less destruction in the long run. And I just think that it's very uncharitable to our opponents when we assume either that they aren't bright or they have nefarious motives. I don't know. I'm off on a little tangent, but I just think it's important to understand that smart people can disagree on subjects like this, but it's not a smart position for somebody like Trump to declare victory, like before the ink is dry. I don't know if there's really ink, but before the ink is dry on the ceasefire.
Look, as much as I agree that we should have bunker busted those nuclear sites and jumped into that degree, as much as I also think that was not constitutional and not in compliance with the War Powers Act of 1973. I also think, as much as this war differs from every other Middle Eastern conflict, in my view, in many ways, there's a great many differences that could set it apart from everything else and could potentially reset the Middle East. The thing I am very uncomfortable with is the hubris that I'm seeing on the right now, led by Trump, of course. Spiking the football in the end zone is certainly not the way to go about things, especially when you're dealing with a psychopathic, unpredictable, irrational enemy who's oriented around pride, and they have to save face. That is the way they look at the world. Those missiles are going to be coming in retaliation because they have to save face. And not only did they come in retaliation, they came 30 minutes after the ceasefire. It was as if they were sending that final message of defiance to the rest of the world and to Israel, which Israel was going to respond to. So for Trump to say both sides violated the ceasefire, that's bullshit too. No, one side violated the ceasefire and the other side was going to retaliate and decided to scale back its retaliation because of American influence. Once again, America prevents Israel from defending itself fully and entirely and winds up creating a more complex and fucked up situation than there was to begin with. Instead of just simply defeating the enemy, we wind up running down a middle course that becomes a clusterfuck in the long run. Which is probably a great introduction to that article about a short or a brief history of how many presidents have fucked up the Middle East, which was not so brief, by the way. I got to say that article went on for days.
No, Scott Schiff is again defending Trump. He's saying he's softening them up for the negotiations. It's
Look, I believe he was playing a certain game at first.
It's 10-dimensional chess, whatever.
Yeah. Wait,
the
Scott,
brief.
Scott, I got to tell you, he doesn't play four-dimensional chess. He's not that smart. He really isn't. Look, one of the scariest things that was it Caroline Levitt is the press secretary said. She said two scary things in one press conference that should have made everybody who's a Trumpster think twice about being a Trumpster. One of the things she said in answer to a fairly reasonable question from a reporter was trust in Trump. Almost like God, in God we trust. Just trust in Trump. No, I'm not going to trust in Trump. I'm sorry. That's not the American way. The American way is to be suspicious of political power, to not trust it, to be ever vigilant. We do not trust politicians. That is what makes us unique, uniquely American. Americanism is very hostile to the political class because they know what the political class's potential is. They know how dangerous they can be. She also said another thing when she said she couldn't talk about what the president was going to do because he goes by instinct and he trusts his instincts, and his instincts are tremendously on point all the time. That's a scary thing too. First of all, that we're being asked to trust the political class in the United States, uniquely based and founded upon a distrust of the political class is a terrifying thing. But to know that the president does not think about responses, but feels his way through responses and sort of wanders into the right, decision by way of some instinctual grasp of the situation. That's frightening to me. That's Michael, that's Atlas Shrugged villain level frightening.
Yes, it is, and the problem, and one of the reasons that I was opposed to a strike on Iran is because of the long history that you've mentioned. It's because of the incompetence that our government has shown. It's because specifically in this case, we have Trump at the helm. What the hell happened here?
Trump at the helm, who is likely one of the most incompetent presidents we've had in a
Yes.
long time. I know that Scott is probably not going to like me saying that, but it's true.
He'll be fine. So let me just go through some of these. Let's go through the list, and we'll have you give us your breakdown. But I want to go through the whole list first, and then you come in and give your.
Perhaps we should take some of it one by one because there's a lot of complicated moving parts here that weren't necessarily mentioned in the article, and only
The
some of
article's in
them.
Reason Magazine, by the way, and I will share it to X. So the beginning, the first article they talk about are the roots of America's involvement in the Middle East, and it has to do with Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He met with King Abdulaziz Al Saud on the USS Quincy in 1945, and he promised that he would help Saudi Arabia develop their country as long as America had access to Saudi. Guess what? Guess what that we wanted access to? Can anybody guess? Mark, what did we want
Yes,
access
yes,
to?
but it was oil, I believe, discovered by us, manufactured by us, and refined by us.
Okay, so well, I
So,
think
so we had American interests there because we had business there, and we had a naval base there to support the American business.
didn't the
Which, by the
Brits have
way,
something to do with that too?
the Brits had something to do with, but the Brits had something to do with Iran, and then there's the nationalization of their product over there too, which is also basically a theft. But with Saudi Arabia, here was my contention in a paper that I wrote recently, where you don't want entangling alliances, as if we've gotten in these entangling alliances, but if you do have property and business and American citizens in a foreign country, that is potentially a risky type of business. You have a couple of options as an American government, and that is the company can sign a waiver of its complete rights, or you get the added protection of the American military to protect that site, to protect that American interest, that property, but not the country as a whole. Having no entangling alliances in a world today that is so enmeshed economically is an extremely difficult phenomenon, because usually they want security protections in addition to the economic alliances that they make. Not entirely unreasonable, but I mean, this is something the Capitalist Party has to think its way through, so that so that we get out of this
Well,
subsidy cycle that we're in and fighting other people's wars that
so
we don't need to do.
this is what the author of the article, and again, I'll share this article to Twitter when we are done. He says that this deal inspired Iran to renegotiate its arrangement with Britain in 1951. And then ultimately this led to what Alan Thomas is talking about, that the Brits didn't want Iran to nationalize their oil interests. So then we staged the coup against the
Okay, but say
the
what that
elected.
means. Say what that means. Iran was going to nationalize interests that were British interests, basically the oil industry that Britain brought there, the equipment that Britain brought there.
Okay. That's so the problem I have with that, Mark, is it's so collectivist. Britain brought
Okay,
it
the
there,
businesses, British businesses, private
This-
industry had a stake, had a claim in that oil. They were producing oil, okay, as a
Okay.
private industry that should have been under the protection of the British government.
No, I don't think it should. I really I know
Okay, then
that's your take.
we
But
have a
yes,
difference here, because I
and
think American citizens and
here's the
businesses and
problem.
property should be protected.
I think it's similar to caveat emptor, buyer beware. If you want to have dealings with foreign countries, I think that's great, and I think trade is great. But you can't. But to say that because people want to go do business, say in Ecuador, and now I'm doing business in Ecuador. Now the United States military is going to come to protect my interest. That, for one thing, I don't think it's constitutional. I'm not sure. I don't think so, though. But it's also a very risky proposition, which the whole history of the Middle East demonstrates. So then, as a result of this, we get rid of the Iranian democratically elected government.
Wait, but you're missing the point. The nationalization of that oil was essentially stealing property. They stole the oil. They
From
stole the
Americans?
from the British.
Okay,
They
but we
stole it.
staged the coup.
Yes, we as alliance as being in alliance with the British staged a coup against a Soviet, a guy who was in bed with the Soviet Union, because we had that, myopic perspective that anything that we did had to counter Soviet imperialism
Yeah,
abroad, basically.
Mark, I get there's a reason for it. That's the
No,
whole
I'm not. I'm not
problem.
justifying the reason.
No,
I
I
think it's
get it, but
stupid.
the
I think
problem.
I think they just should have protected the property and not allow the Iranian government to nationalize what wasn't theirs.
But the problem is that once you start getting involved in these foreign adventures, which Washington warned about, which Jefferson, even though he violated his own principle, warned about, you don't know how it's going to turn out. That was 1953, 72 years later.
Alan Thomas says it's something that I disagree with entirely. This is not the same colonial model initiated by the British at the tea companies, where they tried to impose a monopoly on the colonies. That's not what this was. If you're trying to draw a line between British discovering oil and refining and processing it in Iran, and the Iranians somehow nationalizing that and stealing that, I don't think there's any relationship between the two. The British were trying to impose the East India Tea Company's product on the colonists, and they didn't want that. That's not really what was going on here. In fact, I think there was an issue at first where, I mean, this was a slow creep type of thing, if I remember correctly, where they started profit sharing with the Iranian government initially as a form of appeasement to sort of the rankling politics that was going on there, and then it turned into a full-fledged nationalization. Yeah, but the military following national business interests, I do think, is some legitimate, depending upon the country that it's in. Now, I think if you're going to do business in a country that is essentially lawless, if you're going to go to a China, you can waive your rights, and the American government has no responsibility for what you do there, and that's caveat emptor. If you're going to a relatively free state, I think the free state has the added incentive that the American military protects its property and its citizens, which is their responsibility to do.
So then that what ends up
Do you
happening.
Michael, do you think that the American government has a responsibility to protect your life and defend your life? let's say you go to Mexico.
No, I do not. No, I do not.
Let's say
No,
you go. You don't think
no,
that the American
no.
government should not protect you if you go to a foreign state that's
No.
not a foreign state, that there's a risk necessarily where the
I don't care where it is.
foreign government has said
No,
you shouldn't go there. It's a dangerous place. You're taking
no.
your life into your own hands. You don't think that the if you're kidnapped, say if you're in Israel and you're kidnapped by Hamas, you don't think the American government should have any say in that?
Well, there's a difference between saying, well, do I think they should have any say, and do I think that the military should be stepping in? Those aren't the two things. I mean, those aren't the only two options.
I would prefer it.
I think in this case, if they want to negotiate or maybe trade some prisoner or do something like that, but to say that we're going to use the United States military to go protect overseas business interests, I think has horrible consequences to it. And this is just, I mean, look, this is 1953 this happened, and we're still dealing with the repercussions today. 72 years. 72 years ago, we got rid of a democratically elected Iranian leader, and we're still dealing with the problems today.
I got to read Jason Adams stuff, because I'm going to read it all the way through, even though I have only read pieces of it. So 50 years ago, Truman and Eisenhower surrendered the West's property rights in oil. This is true. Although that oil rightfully belonged to those in the West whose science, technology, and capital made the discovery and use possible. Also true. The first country to nationalize Western oil in 1951 was Iran. True. The rest, observing our frightened silence, hurried to grab their piece of the newly available loot. Also true. And this is why I think things got so fucked up. Because the American government, their responsibility is to protect American property and rights.
It wasn't American property.
Yes, it was.
It was British.
It was.
I thought it was British.
No, we're talking about this whole thing started with Iran and Saudi Arabia and us
in Iran. Mark, whose oil was in Iran?
I'm also talking about the American government. Jason Adams is saying something exactly right. Okay, it's Iran noticing weakness in Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia noticing American weakness in Iran, the whole Middle East noticing American weakness all over the place.
You know what this reminds me of, what you're saying right now? It reminds me of the people who want to put controls on business. And whenever the controls don't work, they say the problem is we need more controls.
It's not colonial, Alan Thomas. It's not colonial. Alan, it's not colonial to protect your property abroad. It's not colonial.
Let's put Alan in the corner like baby for a second. No offense, Alan. I hope everybody gets the reference. But what you're saying is, yes, look at all these disastrous results of American intervention. And then you're saying the problem is that they didn't intervene more and sooner. Come on.
Wait. Robert Nasir says, leaving the country you're in equals anarchy. Tell me about that, my friend. Expand upon that. Or maybe we should bring Robert on. Can you send Robert a link to bring him on? We'll have a two-guest show today. We only have 6 minutes
first of all, it's an epic straw man, because you don't have anarchy. Mark himself set up the scenario where you're going to relatively free countries. These countries have governments. There's laws in those countries. So that's the first thing. It is not the responsibility of America to defend their citizens wherever they happen to go on the planet, regardless of what they do. Like, I remember recently we had, what's her name there? Brittany Griner. She goes to Russia. She breaks the law. She gets arrested. Right? I think it's ridiculous that she was arrested. I think it's ridiculous that that's the law over there, but she chose to go and she chose to break the law. So now what are you going to do?
Well, what about, let's say, an American citizen that goes to Russia as a journalist, let's say, who gets falsely accused of being a spy, gets in prison, put in the gulag there, tried under false pretenses. What should America do about that?
America, at most, if you want to trade somebody, you want to negotiate, things of that nature, that might be
negotiate with a terrorist regime like Putin.
Hold on, they already negotiate. That's already so you're not going to negotiate. You're just going to send the military in and do what?
RW says something interesting here. Should the U.S. president be protected outside of the country, then why not a citizen have some kind of protection or the same kind of protection? Why are they suddenly? Why is it caveat emptor for the person who leaves a country? At this, the power, the concept of right should extend to American citizens within other places, provided those other places aren't, let's say, the American government has already put them on a list and warned Americans not to go there. Let's just say that's
What
not
is
the
the
case.
purpose of the United States military? Because from my understanding,
To protect American interests, to protect us from initiated violence from other countries, protect us from invasion from foreign countries, but also, I think, to protect American interests abroad, which include American property, citizens, and businesses abroad. I think that is a benefit. It's a boon. One of the things that I liked about Trump negotiating with the Ukrainians mineral rights over there was that not only was it an exchange that was going on where we weren't just siphoning money to a people from which there would be nothing in return, so it wasn't an altruistic move. We were actually in essence guaranteeing the security of the Ukrainian people by our presence there as a business,
I got to
as
tell you,
a
I'm just
profitable
blown
business.
away. This never ceases to amaze me. It really doesn't. Like, this drives me absolutely batty. The degree to which people who are so critical of government believe taxation is theft, that the government has no business doing it. But somehow all this goes out the window when it comes to the military. No, we need to just strike. But by the arguments that we've had on this show, and by what the people have said in the audience,
Alan says, let's agree that domestic governing values no longer apply when you cross that imaginary border and go into somewhere else.
Okay. But here's the problem.
Listen to that.
So going from the
I
people,
can't buy it.
So what we're saying now, let me just get this straight.
Okay.
We need to get involved on behalf of Ukraine in their fight with Russia. We need to get involved with Israel and go to war with Iran. Not only that, but anytime an American citizen is overseas and has his rights violated, the military needs to get involved in that. When does it end?
It ends exactly. It ends exactly when America shows that it has the backbone to defend its citizens abroad, which they've never shown up to this point. Deeper with Diego says he's confused. He says, "I'm confused by the conversation. Are we talking about breaking existing laws in foreign countries, or having your property stolen by a foreign country without notice?" Deeper with Diego, I was talking about having your property stolen by a foreign country without notice.
Well,
I think that's fucked up. No, the article brought it up. I think it's fucked up.
You said that it had to be a rights-respecting country. You said that if somebody goes to a country that doesn't respect rights.
I said primarily that. But if you're in Iran, you decide to do business in Iran or Saudi Arabia, you could have the option to waive your rights. But in the case of in 1951 and 1930, when these deals were going on from 1930 to 1951, when Iran nationalized,
they were a rights-respecting country.
No. I'm saying when these deals were going on, that all of that property, all of that equipment, all of that technology did not belong to Iran. It didn't belong to them. It belonged to British businesses who should have been protected by, they were protected by a contract that they had signed with the government of Iran, which they promptly broke.
Okay, so first of all,
who enforces the contract then? If not the military.
So do you think that contracting with governments for business interests is a legitimate function of government?
I'm sorry, say again?
Is that type of contract legitimate? The Brits negotiated contracts with I'm assuming the Iranian government, right?
Yes, I think that the governments of the respective states have to honor the contracts that they make with one another.
Why are governments involved in contracts? And if you're the Brits, you don't mind that they didn't mind getting in bed with this government.
What do you mean? That arbitration is waiving your rights. So the contract is supposed to be a deal between two people that's protected by state law, and in the state, and in the case of America, you have the protections of the Constitution of the United States, which include property rights. Mark, so when you make that's what a contract is. That's what a contract is. It's insured by the government protection.
Hold on. Who was the contract with?
I don't know the details.
Okay.
I don't know the details of what of
No
the
one
deal
is saying you
between...
can't have a. This drives me even crazier. No one's saying you have a contract without a government. Governments are there to enforce contract. You're talking about a situation where they contracted with the government.
Okay, Alan, the colonialist perspective is not the perspective that I am talking about. So you're talking about another perspective. The colonialist perspective has to do with exploitation of people and things over there, and a complete subordination of the local population to the will of the colonial master. And that is not what was going on with Britain and Iran at the time, and that was not what was going on with the United States and Saudi Arabia.
Do you see the problem here? Alan is coming in on the side with different arguments than I'm making, and Mark ends up arguing with him, and then other people, I end up arguing with them. This is what, let me tell you, that's how we end up confused.
Okay, so wait, well, we have to go now, though.
No, we don't, because I want to just make something clear.
Okay,
you're talking about contracts that are going on between governments. If you're not talking about a situation where private Iranian citizens were renting their land to British companies so British companies can develop the property. You're talking about the government, a government, by the way, that's not a right respecting government. If I'm wrong about this, by all means, someone tell me. But you're not making a contract with in a country that's respecting rights. You're making a contract with a country that's not respecting rights. That people don't care about rights. On top of it all, they were British companies. What the hell is America doing getting involved?
Chandler wants us to bring Lee back. So I think somehow, look, folks, remember to hit like or subscribe.
Chandler's crush on Leah. Chandler's crush on Leah, notwithstanding, on Lee, actually. Mark got it wrong, Lee, not me. I'm just saying it. Alan Thomas is on my side. I knew Alan Thomas was a genius. I've always known it ever since the first phone conversation I ever had with him.
Here's what I think is normally the case between you and me. I think there's probably an element of right to both of the things that we're saying.
You are a colonialist expansionist who wants to use the U.S. government to take over other countries and enforce your will. That's clearly what's going on here.
Absolutely wrong, Dave Smith. Absolutely wrong. That is not what I stand for. I stand for the protection of American property and American citizens. That's what I stand for, which I think is what the proper function of the government could be. So now this will just lead right into my capitalist thought of the day.
First, folks, I just have to say, I want to just tell Lee, thank you so much for coming on to the show today. You were wonderful, and we may just start this out or where we have somebody come on the show. I could use a reasonable person on the other end because my opponent here is obviously a warmongering expansionist who wants to take over the world and enforce his will. So we'll get somebody else.
No, I just want us to fight for what's ours when it's ours. I don't know what deeper with Diego's obsession with black men is, but
whatever, man. He's into what he's into. It's not just black men. He wants a body pillow with me.
Oh, that's true.
I'm not a black man.
Okay, well, I don't know, but you play one on TV. So look, one of the great things about capitalism, folks, one of the things that distinguishes it from every other political and economic system out there is its respect for property. That's right. That's one of the things that communists hate. The communists think that property is the source of all conflict, when property is actually the source of peace. It's the way in which human beings are able to have sovereignty over the material world and command over the material world, which they need in order to act in their best interests. And capitalism is the only system in the world that protects those things, unless you're in 1951 Iran and Saudi Arabia, in which case they don't. You are considered a colonialist for doing that and a warmonger by my esteemed partner and very good friend, Michael Liebowitz. So look, we'll talk more about this. Look, I really want to do a deep dive into this because I don't know enough about. I know quite a bit about Israel, and I was going to say a lot about the Suez Canal stuff when we got to it, because there's a lot of nuance that I think was missing in the article about the Suez Canal conflict, which actually rose up to cause lots of problems later on. And so I have a lot to say about that. Not so much about this stuff. A lot of my information with respect to this particular area is informed by Leonard Peikoff, And so that my opinion is and thinking is in sync with his, because I think his opinion was right. You think it's wrong, and we can have a deeper discussion about that when we do a deeper dive into the actual facts. And then I might change my mind, Michael, because you have changed my mind before. I don't know if I've changed your mind. Have I changed
I
your
don't
mind
know.
yet?
Probably.
Okay.
I'm whimsical.
It's possible to change my mind. But look, guys, we're going to be here tomorrow, same bat time, same bat place, at 9 a.m. Pacific, at 12 p.m. Eastern. I promise we won't have the same technical difficulties tomorrow as we had today, because it got us off to sort of a rough start. But hey, it was spontaneous and weird and freaky. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and also don't forget to pass this on YouTube. Make sure you go on YouTube, and what do they have to do? They have to like it on YouTube. They have to what do they do? What do
What?
they have to do on YouTube that's different from everything else? They just can't put it on X. They have
Yes.
to
No, they don't share it from X.
share from YouTube. That's it.
YouTube to X to Facebook.
Share from YouTube to X. Okay, that way, we get more folks on the capitalist boat, and we get to ride that to the capitalist heaven that we all want to go to, except alive and experiencing it, not the way most people go to heaven. All right, folks, so that's it for today. I'll see you tomorrow. Remember to check your premises. I'm sure this discussion today will get us all checking our premises. We'll come back tomorrow and maybe revisit this conversation. Until that time, I'll see you later. Peace. Buddy.